Hello there.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. So, a little stressed today. As you know, I got a lot on my mind, right?
Oh no.
Yeah. And one of the things on my mind has been on my mind for a little bit, and so I need to tell you so I can get it out of my brain.
Cool. So you can focus on other things? Okay, get it off your mind. Go!
Okay. So, have you ever read the children's book 10 Little Rubber Ducks by Carle?
I haven't, and it genuinely bothers me when I have to say that.
Okay. So, it's this little picture book story about these, like, it starts out in this little, like, hand-painted factory, like, where these two people are hand-painting little rubber duckies.
Okay.
And then the rubber duckies, they go onto a ship, something happens, they end up in the ocean, and they go on adventures.
I'm gonna order
like,
a copy
they
of
all
this
just
book
kind
right
of,
now.
like, divide up, and each one of them has, like, a little, like, one of them sees a polar bear, you know, like, a whole bunch of stuff like that, okay?
Spoiler alert, I'm buying this book right now.
Oh, okay. Spoiler alert.
Okay, but tell me more still.
Yeah, so that exists. And,
Excellent.
there's a little note in it, an author's note, talking about how this is based on an actual event. So I'm going to tell you about this actual event, okay?
I love where this is heading.
All right. So, I had to get this book. It's called Moby Duck by Donovan Hohn. And it's a travel book, which is not my jam. I
feel
not.
Okay, give me a quick definition of a travel book.
It's a nonfiction book where somebody went on travels and basically, like, documented what they did.
Okay.
And it's usually in, like, a narrative sort of format, but sometimes it's journalistic. And so, like I think Eat, Pray, Love, like, falls into that sort of category. I've never read that.
Well, that's the second book you've mentioned today that I haven't read, and it's disappointing.
Okay.
So, carry on. Sorry.
Yeah. So travel books are not super my jam because I'm just like, I don't want to read about every little thing that you did and this man that you met on the boat and like all of that, which isn't totally there was a travel book that I read that was about, hitchhiking and carnivals. And that was actually pretty interesting, but yeah, weirdness. Sorry. Off tangents. But I don't know why I don't love a travel book because I really do love The Hobbit, and that's very much a travel book, just as fiction. So I don't know.
Maybe
I don't
that's
know.
the ticket.
Maybe it can't be real. Okay.
Fair.
Anyway.
Ducks.
So, January 1992. Okay.
Oh, I wasn't here yet.
No, me neither. There was a ship that was in the Pacific Ocean and was carrying freight. And It left Hong Kong on January 6th. And it made port in the port of Tacoma in Washington.
Tacoma.
And it was a day late. And we assumed that that's because it hit some bad weather. Weirdly, although it was pretty good at, like, documenting its weather, it didn't document it on January 10th. But some ships that were in the same area did document that there were, like, hurricane-like winds, and it was just a bad storm in this area.
Okay.
So it was at 44.7 degrees north, 178.1 degrees east. That's where we know this happened. The ship keeled 55 degrees starboard and then 55 degrees to the port. And a crate full of bath toys that were made in Hong Kong.
Bath toys.
So
it rocked the boat?
It rocked the boat and they fell down into the Pacific Ocean. Okay. And they were packaged, like, pretty well. There were 4 types of bath toys and they were each, like, you got 4 each in a package. And there were 7,200
packages
of these packages. So 7,200 ducks, yellow ducks, 7,200 red beavers, 7,200 green turtles, and 7,200 blue frogs.
The turtles
landed in the ocean. The First Years was the company that made this, so there were other
things.
like, this is not the first time that bath toys have ended up in the ocean, right? Because, you know, like maybe kids take them to the beach or,
right.
you know, it just gets thrown away and then it ends up in the garbage pile that ends up in the ocean, whatever. You know, like stuff happens, bath toys end up in the ocean, but these were specifically marked the first years, and the company didn't like really cop to it for a while. Like they didn't really say like, oh, we lost, you know, all these bath toys. Watch out for it. It actually happened because there were news stories because people were suddenly just finding these things
finding all these ducks.
The beach, right? Well, and that's the thing is like as it went on, and this is why Eric Carle like wrote the book the way he did, was like as it went on, it really became like this legend sort of situation as time went on, where even though there were 4 different animals, those rubber ducks were the only one that really stuck in people's minds. And certainly what stuck in his mind, why he wrote that book. So we're going to talk about oceanography a little bit, right? Because that's what a good portion of this book is about.
Specifically the oceanography. That's a fun word.
Oceanography of like, where did these ducks and beavers and turtles and frogs go?
I would have remembered the turtles. I just need to say that.
Right. And if I'm remembering correctly, like the ducks and the beavers, I think the ducks certainly were like the color ran out of them fast. But I think it was also the red that did not stick around. But the blues and the greens like were very like, oh, like they stuck in that. They didn't get bleached very quickly.
Yeah.
So apparently a couple years before this, there was El Nino happen. An El Nino happened. So if this had happened a couple years prior, they would have basically headed straight for Hawaii.
Okay.
And it wouldn't have been a whole like journey. But because El Nino had changed the way the water was moving in the ocean a little bit, they went north instead. And so a lot of them, and most of the ones that have been found on beaches, ended up at Gore Point, Alaska.
So like completely reversed it.
Yeah. Which is so strange. And they've tried to like do simulations to try to figure it out, but there's a lot, like you need data for that.
Right.
And that becomes difficult for a lot of different reasons, which we'll talk about a few. But one of the news stories that like really made this happen and like made it so that people were like genuinely like looking out for these things to try to find them happened 11 years later on, this is a great name, Gooch's Beach. And it was all the way in Maine. They found a duck. And so if that duck genuinely like went from the Pacific Ocean up past Alaska, over Canada, and then down again into the Atlantic to end up on a Maine beach, that's bonkers. But it's eyewitness testimony. They didn't keep the duck. They said that it said the first years on the bottom, but they also, like, there were 2 people that found this duck, and one of them says it was white, like, basically no yellow left at all, and one of them was like, oh, it was definitely yellow. And so that news story might not have been that duck might not have even been from this crash, or this overboard situation, right?
Rocking the boat.
And it really depends on whether it was white or yellow. If it was white, it was probably from that. If it was still yellow, though, that's just a random duck.
Right. That's just a random first-year duck.
Right. A random first-year duck. But yeah, one of the reasons that this like is so difficult to track is because there are certain years where they find more of these bath toys, you know, near Gore Point than normal. Right. Than other years, right? So in 92, they found a bunch. In 94, they found a bunch. In 99, 02, 04, they found oodles, right? But this guy that wrote this book, while he was out looking with people called beachcombers, are the people that find they comb the beaches for plastic and trash and all of that. Somebody found, I think it was I can't remember. It was one of the bath toys, but he had found it and it had been buried. So like, even though he found it in July 2007, we know when he found it. Right. How long it had been there, you know, when did it get there? Right. When did it make land, right? And there's no way, because a lot of oceanographers, when they look at this, they're like, oh, you know, these bath toys just like keep circling this North Pacific subpolar gyre. which is one of the biggest, maybe the biggest, I can't remember if it's one of the biggest like ocean currents in the world. And it's just going round and round clockwise up there. Okay.
Okay.
And so they're just like, oh, it's just circling around there. And then eventually, like, you know, a bunch of them will break free and like go toward the coast, whatever. Like that must be what's happening. But
okay.
The data is skewed because you don't know how long the stuff has been there. So, especially those ones that were buried, you know.
Right.
If you're seeing it come in on the wave, that's a different situation. But like most of these, you're just finding them on the beach, you know, or in the beach, you know, like it's anyway. So there are a lot of like environmental questions that have to do with this, right? Like, how much is this? Because this certainly isn't the only, you know, shipping container of things,
right,
to fall into the ocean. It's not the only one. It wasn't the first. It wasn't the last. Like, this is an ongoing thing. There's an organization that this guy goes to Gore Point with called GoAK or GoAK, and it's Gulf of Alaska Keepers. So they're like constantly making like boat trips along this area to like gather trash up from the beach, comb the beaches, right?
Okay.
And basically what he runs into are like two schools of thought on that, which I thought was really, really interesting, where it's like they're doing that because they're like, the plastic leaching and breaking down into the water is having this huge like environmental impact and we need to help stop it, which seems reasonable.
Okay.
But there's also the school of thought that's like, the boats that they're taking out, are those polluting the ocean more than the plastic leaching ever could? So I thought that was very interesting. So the author of this book, he really wants to find like one of each bath toy to collect for himself, right? He just wants it. And he does, he finds like,
is that his travel?
It's his travel. This man left his pregnant wife to go do some of this. He made it back in time for the birth of their child,
wife,
but like
I need to go find my rubber ducky.
I need to.
I need to. It's a great big bathtub out there.
It's the biggest bathtub ever. Okay. So yeah, he goes with GoAK. He goes with like any ship that's headed toward plastic collection zone, basically. Okay. He's trying to go with them to kind of like document, and because I think he's a journalist is his trade, right? So I only got to a certain point in the book about halfway through, and then they started talking about the working conditions of toy production in China. Oh. And I was like, that's very important, but it's way too much for me to like go into it at this point in time, like with this book. So, and I'm not going to tell you all about it. So
we went from rubber duckies.
Right.
And you already have stuff on your mind. I
already have so much on my mind. But yeah, so he does, by this point in the book, he does have a beaver that he found himself and a duck that someone found for him that had some ocean water in it because it had actually gotten like cut by something.
Oh.
So like it had water in it from the ocean. So he was doing his own little experiment with that duck and was just like, what does happen when it's in, sub-zero temperature? So he like put it in his freezer at home. Which is a hoot and a half,
very serious science.
Yeah, yes. But he does send the beaver to get tested.
Mm-hmm.
Like its molecular makeup at that point. And so the test reveals like it is made of polyethylene, confirmed, but it had absorbed 12 different polychlorinated biphenyls, which is PCBs, right? Which doesn't help answer that question of like, are the boats doing more, or, you know, is the boats and the fuel doing more damage, or is the plastic, because PCBs can come from either of those. So there are PCBs being like leached into the water, but where's it coming from? I don't know.
Who?
Maybe somebody knows. I don't know. And one more thing, and this was just a random thing that I didn't know, and you might know already. But
I'm intrigued.
Did you know that BPA was when it was first created, was created as a synthetic form of estrogen, and that's why people are freaked out about it?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I'm going to be very honest in my own shortcomings and lack of knowledge. Never really looked into the alarm around the BPA and the PCBs. Same. Maybe I should. I haven't looked very much into it until and even now, like, I feel like there's so much I don't understand about them. But yeah, like we've all heard of BPA because like they all of a sudden were taking it out of everything, and now you can't like sell containers. Everything is BPA free.
Have BPA free. But yeah, synthetic form of estrogen that they then like turn into a polymer that lined cans and made plastic out of it and all of this stuff. And so people were like, oh, synthetic estrogen, if we're getting a little bit of that over time, like what's that doing to the birth rate and whatever else? And so now we can't have it anymore. And I thought that was really random, a really random thing to learn from this random book that I only read because of this other random children's book. And ta-da, now I know that, and now you know that, and it can leave my brain for a minute.
Okay, so what is the author of this children's book?
Eric Carle. He's like the very hungry caterpillar.
Yep. The second you said it a second time, my brain connected. So was it like strictly his imagination from hearing about these ducks, or do we like know other adventures that we can't prove any of the adventures, huh?
Right. We can't prove any of the adventures. We can't prove that any of the rubber ducks saw a polar bear. But it is pretty likely that they came close to that, at least, because we know that they went north, and that's where the polar bears live.
The polar bears live?
Yeah, really, he just read that news story about that couple in Maine finding the duck, and then, like, I guess, looked into it a little more, found out that, and in his note, he said he just rounds up to 29,000.
29,000 ducks.
Yeah. Which sounds better than, it's more artistic, round feeling than 28,800, but it's
this is what matters.
Yeah.
So was it already such a thing in the early 90s about things in the ocean that the ship, like, I just like they dumped these why wouldn't they acknowledge that they dumped bath toys? I don't know why that's a sticking point in my brain.
I don't know whether it was like, we're hiding this sort of thing because we are aware of dangers, or if they were just like, doesn't matter, why tell anybody?
Right. So it wasn't like people were like, how did this happen? And they were like, we don't know, no idea. It just like wasn't publicly released, or
by that point that it was really getting publicized. I mean, that was like, what, 2003-ish?
Oh.
So, right, yeah. That's around when the couple in Maine found a duck. And so then that really started like the news, like the focusing on this had happened. So I think by that point there was more awareness, and they were trying not to.
Yes. So if it had broken earlier, they'd be like, yep, that was us, we're cute.
Maybe. Again, like, obviously at that point, like, we would have been too young to know. So
yes.
So
yes.
Not sure.
I do want to say that this would hinge on, like, because they were a couple, right? The two people that found it, like, they were
boyfriend, girlfriend, just like out for a stroll on the beach.
Just like the dynamic, like, I hope they're still together somewhere and being like, I swear to you that duck was white.
Yes.
All of these scientific questions that arose from this question of whether it was white or yellow, if it was this ship. Because I didn't know that I had heard about this, and I could be completely wrong, but I feel like sometimes I read these articles and I have no, like, they just kind of go to the back of my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And then until like somebody reminds me of them, and then I just like grasp random tidbits of maybe thing. But I feel like this or something similar to this was actually helping people like map out ocean currents, oceanographers. Right. Was that a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. That's like a lot of oceanographers, like, that's why they're trying to like collect these ducks and beavers and turtles and frogs.
That they're from that.
Right. And prove where they came from, because like we know the exact coordinates where they dumped.
Right. Does this company still exist?
I think so.
I feel like I should know the answer to that. I have a child that has bath toys.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Regardless.
Irregardless.
In the Pacific Ocean. No.
It's so good, buddy.
I don't know why, and maybe this is why it's so fun for me to like dig into historical events like this, because I just try to add like the human factor, thinking about like the conversations that had to be had. Like, I'm telling you, that couple, and even if they're not together, she's like bitter somewhere about their breakup. Like,
oh yeah, she thinks about it sometimes.
Like, I swear that man is colorblind, and I am right. And
yes.
And then, like, I want the conversation.
I think she was the one that said it was white.
I knew it.
Regardless.
I knew it. And I want to be in the room of these like very serious oceanographers and very serious conservation concerned informed scientists being like, the problem is these rubber duckies. And I want to watch that presentation and keep a straight face, man. Keep a straight face. Show me your scientific proof of ocean currents.
Yeah.
Based on these rubber duckies.
Yep. And they hold up a blue turtle. A green turtle.
Is it blue anymore? Turtle. Oh, no. Blue and green stayed.
Blue? Yeah. I don't know.
Blue and green stayed. I want that scientist look at my turtle. Would you just look at it? Clearly, it rode this very specific ocean current. Just look at my turtle. Science.
To
good at it.
This point, obviously, that's what happened.
Also, we'll get to the plastics later.
Yeah.
This is another problem. I'm gonna go look at Bubba's turtles. He has bath toy turtles. They like paddle though.
Oh yeah, these were just toy floaties, just plastic floaties.
Yeah. Can you imagine if they had paddles? Ugh, how far you could have gone, little buddy.
How could they have gone? They and
so
how much
far.
more frequently they would have broken out of a current? Amazing.
God, if they had power.
Oh.
There had to have been some of them. They've got to have found some in Australia by now, right?
I don't know
either.
That's very, like, that really would have had to, but I mean, yeah, it's been...
They go south. But all the currents flow into each other at some point. Like, they all kind of loop around at some point.
Right.
I haven't memorized them, but I've looked at maps.
If like, El Nino, a couple years before this, changed it, like, reversed the direction that it was,
which is
it was going
crazy in itself.
It's completely insane. 30 years go by. Who knows what's happening now? I would hate to be an oceanographer because this seems so complex. I cannot even fathom.
You're just going to figure it out. You're just going to be like, listen, my turtle friend, you let me know some things, and now it's all different.
You just gotta listen to the toys. Yeah.
It's all different. Also, that's hard because there are turtles in the ocean.
Yeah.
So it was the sea turtles
being harmed by this.
And the plastic turtles.
Yeah.
But it's all different now. Poor guy. Poor science guy who kept a straight face talking about the rubber duckies and the turtles.
What a wild ride they went on.
A beaver, and what was the last one? Frogs.
Yeah.
I remembered.
Bip, 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 bip.
That's Bubba's favorite thing right now.
Oh,
Ribbit and quack quack, which seems appropriate.
They are the most fun sounds to make.
Ribbit.
I like a little ha-ha as well, but Anywho's it. I need to go pack, my friend.
I'm gonna go look at bath toys.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Okay. All right. Bye.